I got hired to house sit. What I found in the basement wasn't supposed to be seen. So, this started with a favor that seemed too easy to mess up. A friend of a friend, Becca, I think her name was, put a post in our group chat looking for someone to house sit for her boss. I just quit my job, long story, and figured a weekend in a quiet, bougie neighborhood sounded perfect. Feed the cat, water a few plants, collect the mail. $200 and a stocked fridge? Sold. The house was a modern farmhouse-style place just outside of town. Big porch, huge windows, every piece of furniture looked like it had its own Instagram. The kind of place where everything smells faintly of expensive candle and generational wealth. Becca met me there Friday afternoon to hand over the keys. She was rushing through instructions. Cat's name is Clover, don't open any packages, no parties obviously, help yourself to wine, blah blah. I nodded along, barely listening. As she left, she added, almost as an afterthought. Oh, don't worry about the basement. It's locked anyway. I laughed and said, didn't plan on hanging out down there. The first night was fine. Peaceful, actually. I played with Clover, watched trash TV, helped myself to the aforementioned wine. Slept in a bed that felt like it cost more than my car. But around 3 a.m., Clover started acting weird. She sat in the hallway facing the basement door. Not moving. Just staring. Her tail twitching every so often, ears perked. I tried calling her over, but she wouldn't budge. I walked over, trying not to freak myself out. The door looked totally normal, simple white with a brass knob. Nothing ominous. But something about how still Clover was made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I bent down beside her. There's nothing there, silly. Probably a mouse. That's when I noticed her paw. She was gently tapping at the bottom of the door. Not clawing. Not scratching. Like she was waiting. I pressed my ear against the wood. Nothing. No hum of a furnace. No leaking pipes. No creaking. Just silence. I stood up, gave the knob a quick twist out of instinct. Locked. Of course. I went back to bed trying to convince myself it was nothing. Clover eventually joined me, curling up at my feet. But even in my half-sleep, I kept hearing soft creaks. Faint ones. Coming from below. I told myself it was just an old house. But in the morning, I checked under the sink for cleaning supplies, only to find a small envelope, taped behind the cabinet door. Inside? A single key. And a sticky note that said, "For emergencies only. D." I stared at the sticky note longer than I'd like to admit. For emergencies only. D. Who's D? Becca's boss, I assumed. The mysterious owner of this Pinterest-perfect house who, as far as I could tell, existed solely in third-person anecdotes and fancy shampoo bottles. I hadn't seen any photos of her, no framed memories, nothing that said a real person lived here. Just designer furniture and a voicemail greeting that said, "You've reached Dahlia. Leave a message and be clear." Clear? Weird choice of words. Anyway, I told myself it wasn't an emergency. Nothing was on fire. The cat was fine. But that door had been bugging me since last night, and now there was a key. Taped behind the cleaning products. Come on. I waited until late afternoon. Maybe I was being dramatic, but I didn't want full daylight when I opened that door. It felt wrong. Like I needed shadows to cushion the edge of whatever I was about to find. Clover wasn't helping. She was camped outside the basement again, tail curled around her body like a sentry on shift. The second I approached, she stood up and moved aside. Like she knew. The key slid into the lock smoother than I expected. Barely any resistance. Click. The door creaked open with that classic horror movie whine. Of course it did. It wasn't pitch black, there was a small bulb at the bottom of the stairs, casting a dull yellow glow. Dust floated in the air like slow-motion snow. I stepped down carefully. 6, 7, 8 steps. The smell hit me first, not mildew or anything rotten. More like antiseptic. Cold. Like a hospital hallway or a dentist's office. And then I reached the bottom. It was clean. Way too clean. Concrete floors, a long wooden table against the far wall, shelves neatly lined with boxes and stacked books. There was a cot in the corner, military style, thin mattress, folded blanket. And a chair next to it, with a journal open on the seat. This wasn't a storage space. It was a room meant for staying in. I walked slowly, heart thudding in my ears. Everything was placed with intention. No clutter. No random junk. Except the walls, those were the only things chaotic. Dozens of drawings. All taped up, edge to edge. Some in pencil, some in black ink, one in what looked like charcoal. All of the same girl. A little girl, maybe 10 or 11. Messy hair. Hollow eyes. Same face in every drawing, just in different poses. Sleeping. Crying. Sitting cross-legged, staring straight ahead. Some were off. Like the proportions were wrong, or the limbs were twisted. But it was always her. I stood frozen in front of them, feeling something primal start to stir in my gut. Fear, maybe. Disgust. Curiosity. That's when I heard it. Thump. Upstairs. Not loud. Not hurried. But distinct. Like someone had just stepped into the house. I raced up the stairs, heart in my throat, phone already in my hand. But the front door was locked. Deadbolt still turned. No one in the kitchen. No one on the porch. Clover was curled on the couch, completely unbothered. But me? I was not okay. Because I knew I'd heard it. I knew I'd been alone. And when I turned back toward the hallway, I saw something new. The basement door was shut. And I never closed it. I stood there staring at the closed basement door, key still in my hand, throat dry. I didn't close it. Clover wasn't spooked, she was still lazily grooming herself like nothing had happened. But every part of me was on high alert. I even checked the door again. Locked. I double-checked the windows. Locked. Everything looked normal. So I did what all smart people in horror movies never do. I went back down. This time, I brought a kitchen knife with me. Not for any real reason other than it made me feel less helpless. The cot, the shelves, the weird medical clean smell, still all there. But now the journal on the chair was closed. I hadn't touched it earlier. I was sure of that. I flipped it open. Most of it was sketches, shaky ones, like someone with too much caffeine had drawn them in a rush. That same girl over and over again. Sometimes just her face, sometimes just her eyes. Other pages were full of words, scrawled in blocky, frantic handwriting. She watches me sleep. Don't look in the mirror. She's getting stronger. The last entry was dated over a year ago. It's not enough to keep her down here. She leaves when she wants. But she always comes back. I felt a chill race down my spine. I backed away, slowly, until my shoulder hit something on the wall. One of the drawings had come loose, drifting to the floor. I picked it up. It was different. It wasn't of the girl. It was of me. Not super accurate, like someone had drawn me from memory. Curly hair pulled back, hoodie, holding a coffee mug. The pose was familiar. Creepy familiar. It was me from that morning, when I'd stood in the kitchen. I dropped it and got the hell out of that basement. Back upstairs, I locked the door behind me, real lock and chain. Then I grabbed my bag and Clover, who was deeply offended by this, and went out to the front porch. I sat there in the afternoon sun, shaking, trying to come up with a logical explanation. But here's the thing. I never saw any cameras. I looked again. Top corners of the rooms, behind vents, shelves, nothing. Not the cheap kind. Not the Spinanycam kind. No little blinking lights. No lens reflections. No wires. So how the hell did someone draw me like that? How had they seen me? Later that night, after pacing the living room for an hour and downing half a bottle of Dahlia's overpriced wine, I decided I wasn't going to be paranoid. I was going to be smart. So I set up my own camera. Old iPhone. Propped up and charging. Pointed right at the hallway. If something moved, I'd catch it. What I didn't expect was to catch someone coming out of the basement. At 2:47 a.m., I woke up, checked the feed, and saw a shape. Small. Barefoot. Hair hanging in her face. She walked into the hallway. Looked straight at the camera. And smiled. I barely slept. I just lay there with Clover curled up like nothing was wrong, while that image seared itself into my brain. The girl, if she was a girl, stood there, in the hallway, barefoot, head tilted, watching the camera. And then she smiled. Not a child's smile. Something older. Something practiced. The clip was only 15 seconds. After that, she stepped out of frame. Never came back. I rewound it over and over, hoping I'd find a scene, a glitch, proof it was fake. Maybe some pre-recorded video Dahlia had loaded in to mess with people. Maybe a weird prank. Maybe anything that made more sense than a barefoot child materializing out of a locked basement. I sent the clip to my friend Zach. He's into digital forensics and glitch hunting, and more importantly, he's the least likely person to call me dramatic. Me, hey, tell me I'm crazy but also watch this. Zach, why does that house look familiar? Me, focus, dude. Zach, that is not normal. Where are you? Me, house sitting. I think something's wrong here. Zach, yeah. Get out. Which would have been so easy, right? Except I couldn't stop thinking about the journal entries. About she leaves when she wants. About the girl's face. The way she looked at the camera like she knew it was there. I needed someone to come see it. Someone with authority. So I did the obvious thing. I called the police. Well, the non-emergency line, at least. Told them I was house-sitting, that there was suspicious activity, possible break-in. Left out the part about ghost children and prophetic art because, sanity. The cop who came out was young. Too friendly. Looked at me like I was trying to break my lease through dramatics. You said someone broke in? I didn't say that exactly. I said there's someone here who shouldn't be. I showed him the video. He watched the first 5 seconds, then looked at me. You sure that's not just a kid from the neighborhood messing with you? From inside a locked basement? He shrugged. We walked through the house together. He opened closets, checked doors, walked down into the basement while I stood at the top gripping the banister. He came back up 5 minutes later, chewing gum and yawning. No signs of forced entry. No one down there. Basement looks cleaner than mine. I handed him the journal. Showed him the pictures. The one of me. The girl. He flipped through it like it was a zine at a yard sale. You said the owners are out of town? Yes. Well, I don't see anything illegal here. But if anything else happens, call us again. And just like that, he left. No report. No follow-up. No backup. Just me, a haunted basement, a cat with the world's worst timing, and a grainy video of a girl no one thinks is real. That night, I locked the bedroom door. And put a chair against it. Because something told me next time she came upstairs, she wouldn't just be looking at the camera. The next morning, I woke up with Clover staring at me like I was the weird one. The chair I'd wedged under the door? Still there. But the door itself was unlatched. Not wide open. Not creaking like some dramatic movie scene. Just that small, quiet, click undone. I had locked it. I know I locked it. Heard the sound. Felt the bolt slide. I barely slept because I kept checking it in the dark like a maniac. Still. I didn't scream. Didn't run. Didn't even move right away. I just sat up, pulled Clover into my lap, and told her something she definitely didn't care about. Okay. She's not trying to hurt me yet. That's something. I spent the next hour pacing and chugging coffee, trying to figure out what the hell to do. I had a phone full of creepy notes, a camera roll of unsettling sketches, and video evidence that the cops couldn't be bothered to care about. I couldn't just sit around waiting for Ghost Girl to crawl into bed with me. So I started researching the address. The house was old, much older than it looked. Rebuilt. Flipped. Remodeled into modern perfection, but the original structure dated back to the 40s. That basement? Probably untouched beneath the polish. I checked property records. The name on the deed was Dahlia Marsh, Becca's boss, the person who owned this Pinterest nightmare house. The woman whose wine I'd been drinking and whose post-it note told me the basement key was for emergencies only. Then I found something else. Not in official records. Not on Zillow. In a local newspaper archive from 2010. 10-year-old girl missing in Glenhurst area. Last seen leaving the Glenhurst Public Library on Oak Street. Witnesses report seeing her near an abandoned home that has since been remodeled. Neighbors claim the property was empty for years. The address? This address. Her name was Maribel Voss. I stared at her photo on the article, grainy, low-res, clearly scanned in from a printed page. But I knew that face. I'd seen it, again and again, on the basement walls. I ran back downstairs. The moment I stepped onto the concrete floor, my chest tightened. The air felt different. Like it didn't belong to this century. I pulled the drawings off the wall, one by one, looking for anything with words. And then I found it etched in pencil at the bottom corner of one of the earlier sketches. Maribel. Don't look in her eyes. I dropped it. Suddenly, everything clicked. This wasn't Dahlia's art. This was Maribel's story. And someone, Dahlia, had tried to keep her here. Not buried. Not exorcised. Contained. That's why the basement was so clean. That's why the bed was made. The room wasn't abandoned. It was maintained. A cage. And now I had opened the door. I didn't go back upstairs right away. I sat on the edge of the cot in the basement for a long time, holding that sketch in my hand, reading the pencil-scrawled warning over and over. Maribel. Don't look in her eyes. Not my eyes. Not your eyes. Her eyes. Which meant Maribel wasn't the one I should be afraid of. But that didn't make me feel any better. When I finally went upstairs, it was full daylight. I half expected everything to look normal again, cat lounging in a sunbeam, soft music from the kitchen radio, some evidence that I was just unraveling alone in a stranger's Airbnb with creepy vibes. Instead, I found something new. Another drawing. On the fridge. Taped up like it had been there for days. But I hadn't put it there. This one was different, cruder, messier, charcoal scribbled in uneven lines. It showed a woman older. Tall. Thin. Wearing a long dress. Eyes like black holes. The girl Maribel was standing beside her in the picture. And in the corner, written in red crayon, where the hell did crayon come from, was just one word. Mother. I started shaking. I knew what I had to do. Not just for me. For Maribel. She wasn't haunting this place. She was trapped in it. The question was, by what? I spent the next 2 hours researching everything I could find on Dahlia Marsh. There wasn't much. Her LinkedIn said creative director. No company listed. Her Instagram was private, profile pic a flower. Dead ends everywhere. But I dug deeper. Found an old forum post from 6 years ago. Buried in a thread about haunted houses and cleansing rituals. It was her username W_M. The post was short, desperate. If the spirit was summoned into the house, does it stay? Or does it need something else to bind it? Can a child be used? There were no replies. I tried messaging her. No response. I tried texting Becca. Me, where is Dahlia right now? Becca, lol, not sure, probably in the desert? She takes weird retreats. You okay? Me, just answer me. When is she coming back? Becca, next week. Why? Next week. I didn't have that long. So I made a plan. That night, I printed out Maribel's photo from the missing persons article. I took down every drawing of her from the basement walls, every page from the journal, even the sketch that looked like me. I laid them all out on the floor in a circle, with the photo in the middle. Then I sat cross-legged outside the ring, not touching anything. And I said her name out loud. Just once. Maribel. Nothing. Maribel, I saw your drawings. I know what they tried to do. I'm not here to trap you. I just want to help. The lights flickered. Clover bolted from the room. I stayed perfectly still. The air grew heavy. The room pressed in. I felt that now familiar chill crawl up my spine. Then, behind me, I heard a voice. Not a whisper. Not a moan. A small, clear voice just above a whisper. She said she'd keep me safe. But she lied. I turned. Slowly. And standing at the top of the basement stairs, barefoot, with dark hair hanging in her face, was Maribel. Maribel didn't move. She stood at the top of the basement stairs like she was carved there, hair dripping down over her face, her little hands limp at her sides. But I could see her breathing, shallow, slow, like she hadn't breathed properly in years. I didn't move either. I didn't even blink. Why are you still here? I asked softly. Her head tilted slightly to the left. That same slow, eerie motion she made in the hallway camera footage. Then, almost too quiet to hear. She won't let me go. The lights flickered again. I looked down at the drawings, the photo, the chalk circle I'd made out of salt and smashed up Tums because I didn't have anything better. A poor man's protection spell, courtesy of too much time on Reddit. You don't have to stay, I whispered. Not anymore. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she stepped backward up the stairs and disappeared from view. That was when I heard the car engine. I ran to the front window. A black Mercedes had pulled into the driveway. Clean. Silent. And out stepped a woman in all beige blouse, beige slacks, beige sunglasses. Even her hair was a perfect shade of soft blonde gray, tied into a neat bun. Dahlia. She walked like she owned the sidewalk. Like she owned me. I opened the front door before she even knocked. You're early, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She smiled, thin-lipped. And you've been busy. I stepped aside. She walked in like it was a showroom, barely glancing at the furniture. Where's the cat? Hiding. She always did have good instincts. She set her purse down and looked me dead in the eyes. You opened the basement, didn't you? I didn't respond. She smiled wider. Too wide. That room was sealed. Do you know what that means? Do you know what you've let out? She's not a monster, I said. She's a child. You used her. Dahlia's face dropped. She didn't flinch, she shifted. Like a blade being drawn from its sheath. She was never just a child, she said. She came to that house long before I did. But she chose me. She needed a vessel. I gave her a room. You trapped her. I contained her. She took a step forward. I didn't move. She wasn't ready to leave. Not safely. Not without consequence. And now? She looked past me, toward the hallway. Now you've let her decide what she wants to be. I turned to look too. Maribel was standing there. Not at the top of the stairs. At the end of the hallway. And this time, she wasn't alone. Standing behind her, with the same empty eyes and that same too wide smile, was a taller figure. Dressed in beige. I don't remember dropping the salt circle. I don't remember calling for Clover or reaching for my phone. All I remember is standing there, frozen, as two versions of Dahlia stared at each other from opposite ends of the hallway, one real, one not. The real Dahlia went pale. Not with fear. With something worse. Recognition. No, she whispered. You're not strong enough without me. Maribel stepped forward. One step. Then another. The taller figure, Dahlia's copy, moved in perfect sync. Like a shadow peeled off a body. Her eyes weren't glowing. They weren't bleeding. They weren't anything you'd expect from a horror movie. They were blank. Not empty. Wiped. You thought you were in control, I said, not sure who I was speaking to. You thought keeping her here kept you in power. Dahlia's hands curled into fists. I kept this house safe. No, you kept it yours. That's when the lights blew. All of them. Just pop, 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 dark. Clover shrieked from somewhere in the kitchen. I hit the floor. In the dark, I heard one set of slow, deliberate footsteps. Not two. Then Dahlia's voice, shaky, breathless, cornered. I gave you everything. You were mine. But Maribel didn't answer. Instead, there was this hum. Low. Vibrating. Not sound exactly, more like pressure in the air. And just beneath it, I heard words. Not from a mouth. From everywhere. She lied. She promised to help. She used me. Now I will take what I'm owed. I didn't move. Couldn't. There was a sharp crack, like wood splitting. Then a scream. Not Dahlia's. Not entirely human. I blacked out. I woke up in the driveway. Sun rising. My phone buzzing next to me with 17 missed calls from Becca and one from a number I didn't recognize. I sat up slowly, head pounding. The house was quiet. Windows dark. No sign of Dahlia. No sign of Maribel. The front door was open just a crack, like someone wanted me to see it was over. Or wasn't. I called the police. Told them Dahlia never came home. That she left her car, her cat, her phone. They searched the house. Didn't find her. Didn't find anything in the basement either. No cot. No drawings. No journal. Just smooth concrete. Dusty and undisturbed. They asked if I made it up. I asked if they'd like the video. I showed them Maribel's face. It's been 3 months. Becca doesn't return my texts anymore. The house is still there, still perfect, still empty. I drove by once. There was a for sale sign out front, tilted slightly in the dirt. And a child's drawing tacked to it. A little girl. Smiling. Holding hands with a tall, blank figure in beige. Would you house sit again after this? Because I'm pretty sure I'll never sleep in someone else's house again. Curious what you all think Maribel really was.